Hope you guys are doing all well. Had a good weekend. Could you please give me some green check marks in Blackboard? And we'll get started. Today I want to talk a little bit about the course. I want to talk about what we've done so far. I want to talk about what we need to get done still. And just give you guys kind of an overview of what the course is going to look like over the next few months. And then we'll look at doing a little bit of work and maybe a couple quizzes over the next couple days before I see you again, getting our first unit done. So thanks for those of you who put in those green check marks. Waiting on Connor Jaden. Everybody else should be okay. So when you guys logged into the course, I don't know if you've been in for the last few days, but on Friday I opened up the new course, so the Foundations in Pre-Calculus Math. So when you guys log in now, down where it says courses, of course I have a bunch of different courses, but you guys should see F&P Math 10, and then you should see this Math 10 do not use after September 23rd, which was last week. So this was where we were doing everything as one big group, but now all of the math we do is going to be in this F&P Math 10 course. So if you haven't logged into that, you want to go maybe have a look at it right now, that would be a good time. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to go through kind of expectations, what the course is all about, and then we'll kind of look at what we've covered and what we still need to cover to finish off our first unit. So the course breakdown is as follows. So I put it up here. Each unit you're going to have a learning guide, and the learning guide is kind of like the work you would do out of the textbook, but this course has no textbook. It's built right into the computer, which is kind of neat. So your learning guides will be 20% of your grade. You will have a bunch of quizzes that are 10%. Now, I should mention these quizzes. There's usually about 4 or 5 quizzes per unit, and there's 8 units. So the quizzes, basically, they do count for 10% of your grade, but they don't really make that big of a difference. So the quizzes are more for me to know that everyone's kind of on the right track. And if everybody in the course is really struggling with a particular topic that I've already covered, then I can go back and cover it again, sort of thing. So don't stress out about the quizzes. They're usually about 5 marks, and we'll do like 40 or 50 of them. So they don't even work out to be a % each. They're very minimal. Unit exams. So each unit you're going to have an exam at the end of it. These are going to be 30% of your grade. So all of your unit exams you're going to do at home. And the way that I did this last year, and it worked out pretty well for both math and science, was we'll do a bunch of work, do the learning guide, and then at the end of the unit you'll submit the learning guide to me, and I'll go through it and I'll mark it. So if you've made any mistakes, I'll look at it and suggest places where you might need to focus your studying, things like that. So once the learning guide's done, you've submitted it to me. All of the tests are password protected, and I'll send out the password to your parents, and it'll be kind of the expectation that when you're writing a unit exam, your parents are supervising you at home to make sure you're not, writing an open book. You have a closed book exam. You can use your formula sheet, but that's about it. So you submit the learning guide, I go through it, say, yeah, this looks great. I give your parents the password, you type in the password, you write the test at home. So each unit, 8 units, each one has a test. Then we're going to do 2 midterm exams. So basically we do these at the end of each of the semester, or each of the terms, I should say. So the midterm exams you'll come into school to write. I'm not sure where that'll be. We don't have room for 30 or 20 something of you in our building. So we might break it down into like foundations students write in the morning, and then A&W students write in the afternoon. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I've tentatively set a date. So the first week in November, at some time there, we'll write our first exam at school, and then the final exam will be again at school, and that'll be in the third week of January. So those are 20% each, because you don't have to come in all the time. So I need you to write tests a little bit for me, just so I can, make sure everything's going okay with you. This is the same as out of the last class, and you will submit your learning guides. You'll have to scan them using one of these apps and then submit a PDF file. So if you're still having issues scanning and submitting one file for a learning guide, I'll go through that here in a little bit. Maybe after a few days, near the end of the week, if you're still having issues. Costin, are you supposed to be here? No. Go home, Costin. You don't need to be here. All right, the next thing you encounter is the formula sheet, and this is to be used for all of your exams. You get it with your final exam. You can use it for your midterms. You can use it for all your unit exams. Basically, it has a bunch of information on it that you need to look at and basically not memorize, but all of our conversions between miles and yards and feet, imperial to metric conversions. So if you're going back and forth between metric and imperial, and then metric conversions, and then there's some trigonometry stuff, which we'll get to, right angle, triangle things, Pythagorean theorem, equations of a line. We're going to talk about those in a few weeks. Math tiles, we'll see from time to time. All of this stuff we're actually dealing with right now. So perimeter and area of two-dimensional shapes, and then surface area and volume, I should say, of three-dimensional shapes, which we're going to look at this a little bit later on today. And that's kind of it. So basically, you don't have to memorize any formulas. All of this information's given to you. The important thing is that you are familiar with this, so you should print one off, or if you want me to print it for you, you can do that. And once you've printed it, you just know where things are on it. So you're not spending your whole time trying to flip through it and find information. You think, oh, I'm finding the volume of a sphere, I know where that is. It's on the back page, and you just flip to the back page, and there it is. So that stuff's all there. You should definitely have a copy of that, and you can use it for all your tests, quizzes, exams, everything. So there you go. That's the next thing. Just the way that the course kind of is laid out, I always start with Unit 2 instead of Unit 1, just because it confuses students a lot. No, I'm joking. It makes more sense for me to start with Unit 2, I find, instead of Unit 1. So there are 8 units. Unit 1 is based on number systems and radicals, which is kind of square roots. And then Unit 2 is the measurement stuff we've been doing for the last couple weeks. And then Unit 3 is exponents, which is a bit of a longer unit. Unit 4 is polynomials, which is a huge part of Math 10. Unit 5 is relations and functions, which is pretty straightforward. Linear relations gets into kind of like numbers and things like that. Unit 7 is linear systems, and Unit 8 is right-angled trig. So we're talking sine, tangent, cosine. So there you have it. That is Math 10 Foundations in Pre-Calculus in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions about anything I've said, covered, talked about so far that you're a little bit unsure of? Maybe some questions related to the course or expectations or anything like that? Anybody have anything that's come up so far? Maybe something I didn't cover? Fire away. Type them into chat. While that is happening, this Unit 2 measurement is what we've been doing. So I've kind of been taking bits and pieces of Unit 2 measurement from the A&W course as well as the Foundations in Pre-Calculus course, and I've kind of just mixed them together because there's a lot of stuff that kind of overlaps. Jesse, that's a good question. Where do we hand in the homework that was due today? So basically, as we go through the course, Jesse, and everyone else, I'm not going to collect homework every day. I'm going to assume that you're in grade 10 and you can do homework on your own without me making sure it's done each day. So for some of you that will be really good, and for others that won't be very good at all, but hopefully that's okay. So essentially, Jesse, when you guys come to class the following day, if I've assigned some work for you to do, I'll ask at the beginning of class, does anybody have any questions from the work from last day? And if you did, you could just type it into chat, page 2, number 5, I didn't understand, or number 7, and I'll go through it on the board. So the homework is for you to do. That being said, when you guys have homework, it'll likely be out of the learning guide. So each unit has its own learning guide. Now the learning guides I collect at the end of the unit. So basically all the homework I assign is kind of due at the end of the unit. So if that's kind of maybe answering your question a little bit better, then there you have it. So let's look at the Unit 2 learning guide. Basically at the beginning of each unit, you guys are going to print the learning guide off. It's going to have all of the work for the entire unit in it. And my expectation is that you're going to go through, answer all of the questions, show your work, and once we're done the unit, I'll say the learning guide is due on Friday, September 30th, and then you guys will all submit it on Friday, September 30th. I'm usually pretty good at getting passwords for tests out, so if you submit it on the 30th, I'll do my best to give you the password on the same day that you submit it, but you gotta give me at least a day. So if you submit it on Thursday, expect the password at the end of the day on Friday. It's just kind of, I'm only one man. So I'm gonna open this up and we'll take a quick look at what the Unit 2 learning guide looks like. So measurement, learning guide. Types of measurement, length, mass, weight, temperature, volume. So this sort of stuff we've already looked at. These are all the estimating heights. This is picking the best unit. Believe it or not, you have to know how to use a ruler for Math 10. I don't spend a lot of time going through it because I'm pretty confident you guys are good with a ruler, but if you have issues, let me know. And then conversions, so a foot into yards, and then metric to imperial conversions are down below. Kilometer into yards, millimeters into inches. So we've gone through all of this stuff already. You guys have done worksheets on this already. So obviously, normally we won't be so disjointed where you've done a bunch of work already. This Unit 2 is a bit of an exception. So surface area of right pyramids and cones. We're going to go through a few of these questions today, just because they can get tricky. And we haven't done any pyramids yet in terms of surface areas, so there's a few tricks for these guys. So we'll go through a couple of these ones. Volume of right prisms, cones, and pyramids. Again, we'll go through a few of these today. And then the surface area and volume of spheres. We've looked at this a little bit. The formulas are on the formula sheet. And then all of this irregular shape stuff we've already done as well already. So I've gone through all of these with you. And that's the end. And you'll notice at the end of each learning guide, all the answers are there. Now, I'd say 98% of these answers are correct. There's usually 1 or 2 that are wrong, so I would apologize, but I didn't make them. So by the time you guys submit the learning guide, it's usually about the time we figure out which answers are actually right or wrong. So if you have an answer and you're confident that it's right, then just ask about it in class. Say, hey, Mr. Borden, I got SI imperial conversions 1G wrong, but I'm pretty sure I got it right. Can you check it? So we'll go through and we'll check it together. Again, this is why showing your work's really important. The answers are all given to you. I mean, they're there. I'm not really terribly concerned about the answers, but if you can show me how you got to the answer, that's a lot more important. Obviously, the answer is important to get right, just for your own well-being and confidence, but if the answers are just written down, if you just go through the learning guide, write answer, 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 like you're not fooling anybody. Obviously the answers are already given to you. So that's the learning guide. This one is 15 pages long, so this isn't a terribly long one. Some of the other learning guides are a little bit longer. If you don't want to print them off at home, you want me to print them, I have a big, huge Xerox machine across from my office. Just say, hey, Mr. Borden, I'm going to come pick up the Unit 2 learning guide today. And I'll say, sure thing, I'll print it off. And even if you're in the neighborhood, I don't mind if you guys just come knock on my door. I'm usually available and I can just print it off. It only takes me a couple seconds and then you're on your way. So if you want me to print off anything for you, just send me a message or stop by and we can get those to you. Does anybody have any questions about the learning guide? The learning guide's kind of like the homework that you'd be assigned out of each section of a textbook sort of thing. We don't have a textbook, so that's what we have instead. See a few of you typing, so I'll give you a second. All right, what else do we have in this little course of ours? So as we go through the material, we'll put videos up that covers each of these sections. So usually it's lesson 1, that's one day, lesson 2 is another day. So each lesson ends up being a day, and doing two things at once. We'll do our best to stick to this kind of sort of one lesson at a time, but for this unit, we've already gone through much of these lessons already, so we don't have to worry about them as much. This is kind of one really interesting thing about this course. So the course that we're using is a distance learning course. It's designed for students who are learning from home, just like you guys, but it's designed for students that don't have a teacher to teach them live instruction like you guys have. So if you don't like what I'm doing and you just want to use the course and just use me for support, that's completely fine. So what I'm going to do is, even though each one of these lessons is kind of here, I kind of just ignore them and pretend like they don't exist. That way, if you need some additional examples or somebody else to explain it, the course will explain it to you. So if I open up this, let's do this one, lesson 3, because this is what we're going to talk about today. If I open up lesson 3, up opens a new window, and hopefully this loads. There we go. And it says, all right, are you ready to begin your lesson? So again, all of the stuff I do, I just pretend like this doesn't exist. If you want to use the stuff that's built into the course, you're free to do that. Each lesson, so there's usually like 4, 5, 6 per unit, has this note-taking supplement, which is a document that you can download, and this is all the questions that are going to be gone through, and kind of like the little video. I'm not going to go through any of this stuff. This is just here for you for extra support and things like that. So that is all there. Now I'm going to lose it. And then there's a practice assignment for each lesson as well. This is different than the learning guide. This is completely different. So additional questions to the learning guide's questions. If I click on practice assignment, you can see there's a bunch of additional questions with. A lot of these are out of the learning guide or similar to the learning guide, but they're just additional questions. Maybe the numbers are different, things like that. So what does this look like? If you click on begin lesson, you can't hear it, but there's a nice man talking. And I don't know his name, I wish I did. He does all of the lessons for Math 10. So I'll just skip forward. He starts talking about, front, back, right side, left side, how to find the surface area of this thing. They show you how to do a calculation. He talks about where everything comes from. And you can just kind of flip through it. There's 17 slides, so basically each slide is like an additional question. And then it asks you to put in answer and solution, and you can watch them do it. So it's kind of like an interactive class where everything's kind of explained really thoroughly. You can, go through it slowly. You can skip back and forth. Maybe you know how to do something, you just skip to the next one. So we're talking about a cylinder, area of the base, height. There you go. talking about making a rectangle out of the lateral area. Goes through it, there's a question, and then usually it's followed by another example for you to go through, and you can check your answer once you come up with it. Okay, yeah, and then you're like, well, I didn't get it right, so where did I go wrong? And then you can play the solution, and it shows you step by step how to do the problem. What I want you to do is think of this as a textbook. All of this stuff is here. Each lesson has one of these things. It is essentially your textbook. It is a bunch of examples that are done for you. It has some additional practice examples that aren't done, but the answers are there. It is the textbook. I'm not going to go through the textbook question by question. That's not the type of teacher I am. I will go through some additional material so you guys can look at this stuff that's in the course as well. Does anybody have any questions about any of that stuff? Like, each time you go in here, there's this practice assignment. I'm not going to assign these questions. They're just additional questions for you guys to go through. They are almost identical to the ones in the learning guide anyways. So there you go. Quizzes. Every lesson or every 2 lessons, there's a quiz. This says time limit. I'll take these limits off, and you can see that you're allowed to try the quiz twice. So the quizzes, the tests are all taken out of the same test bank, and I've already started this one. Normally, let's say attempt quiz. I go through it, and you can see 2 questions pop up. Which imperial unit is most appropriate for measuring the width of a snowboard? So I think, probably inches. So I select the inches, and I go to the next one. How many feet are there in 108 inches? So each foot is 12 inches. It's going to be around 10, probably just under, so 9. I'd calculate it, and then I go to the next page. So the quizzes you'll see are about 5 questions. Some of them get a bit longer as the material gets a little bit more involved. I'm not even going to look, and I'm just going to guess on those 2 and go to the next page. And I think this is that one. And I go to the next. And it says, answer saved for all 5 questions. Do I want to submit, or do I want to return to my attempt? Hopefully I want to submit. So I submit all and finish. And it shows me that I got those 2 right. I got 3 wrong. I got 4 wrong. And I got 5 wrong. So it tells you the correct way to do the answer down below. Now, you can do these quizzes twice each. And do you need to do them twice each? No. But is it an advantage to you? Yeah. The next time you do the quiz, you're going to get new questions. And the more questions you see, the more likely you're going to see the questions again on the test or the unit exam at the end of the unit. So usually I set due dates for all of the quizzes as we go along, just so everybody's at the same point in the course. I don't want some people to be way behind and some people to be way ahead. It's kind of nice if everybody's together as we go through this material. So there you go. That's the quizzes. Does anybody have any questions about those? Going once, going twice. All right. So what have we done? What haven't we done? Dimensional analysis, we've done. Imperial measurements, we've done. Relating SI imperial units, we looked at calipers and micrometers really quickly. And then there's a few things in surface area and a few things in volume that I want to talk about. Spheres are pretty straightforward. And then solving problems involving objects, this stuff is all kind of the composite shapes that we've already done. So we've looked at this stuff already. So basically we only have a little bit of stuff in surface area and volume to cover still, and we're done this unit, but we've just started the unit today. So what I want you guys to do, we have class today, and then I won't see you again until Wednesday, and I believe that's it for this week. What I want you guys to do is I would like it very much if we could finish all of these quizzes this week. and I want to wrap up Unit 2 this week. So today I'm going to do a few surface area volume questions, and then next day I'll do a few more, and that'll kind of be all of the material will be covered. So I'll expect that you guys kind of work away at home and get this stuff done. So I'm going to just go into this learning guide. I know you've just seen it for the first time today, and I'm asking you to do 15 pages of math for the end of the week. That's a little bit unreasonable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through it and just cross off a bunch of questions that we've already covered. You don't have to do them again. And then I'm going to circle some questions that we do need to go through still, because it's a little bit different than the material we talked about last day. So Unit 2 Learning Guide looks a lot like this. Before I do this, were there any questions from the surface area volume sheets from 2 classes ago that you wanted me to go through? Anything that came up? Stuff I was just looking at here. Calculating the surface area of 2D shapes. Anything there you want me to go through? No, 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 no. All right. Unit 2, measurement. What have we done? What haven't we done? You might have to go through this after, but I'll assume that you all have this printed off for now. Types of measurement. This stuff is pretty straightforward, so I don't really care if you do it or not. It's kind of common sense stuff. Convert each of the following. So you've done a bunch of unit conversion stuff already. We've done a sheet on this already, so we probably don't need to do it again. So nothing off page 1 or 2. Don't worry about 4. Don't worry about 5. Don't worry about 6. Let's do one question off of page 3, SI imperial conversions. This is at the bottom of page 3. I guess it doesn't matter. Let's just do number 1. So I'd like you to do this one, because this stuff's pretty important. Don't worry about 2, it's just more of the same. So that's page 3. Do question 1. Don't worry about 4. Don't worry about 5. Ooh. Let's do 5, because this is square feet and cubic meters, and that stuff's tricky. So I want to make sure everybody knows how to do that. Really what I want us to focus on today is, starting on page 4, the surface area of right pyramids and cones. So surface area of right pyramids and cones, we talked about pretty basic shapes. We talked about cubes, rectangular prisms, and then we kind of just left it at that. Ooh, look at that, a bonus answer in there from last semester. These take a while, so let's not worry about letter A for number 1. How about you guys do B? You could do C if you want the answers there. Maybe I'll just do C for us today in class right now. Look at that. It's like it never got done. I'll do C for you here in a minute. I'd like you guys to do E. And F's a bit tricky, so we'll do that one as well. We've done a cylinder already, so don't worry about A. We're going to end up talking about a few of these because these are hard. E, don't worry about F. Cones are easy peasy. Let's do 3. Let's not worry about 4. And let's do 5. Volumes of right prisms. We didn't do a ton of stuff on volume, but we did do some. So let's not worry about 1A. We'll do B together. We'll do C because those are tricky. Let's not worry about D or E. Do F, G. Don't worry about 2 or 3. I know I'm going through this fast. I'll go through it one more time before we're done. Let's do 4. Let's not worry about 5. Let's do 6. And don't worry about 7. And then the sphere stuff is really, really easy. And then we've done irregular shapes. So when do I think I'll have this video up? I'll have the video up by the end of the day, Jesse. Promise. We're really quick about it these days because we've streamlined the process of getting the videos uploaded. So basically, if the questions that I've circled, if you can do those by Friday, that'd be good. I'm going to go through some of them right now, which will make our lives a little bit easier because there's a few things I wanted to talk about that we didn't cover yet. So, if you don't have this printed off, no big deal. I want to talk about one of these questions with Pythagorean theorem. So, this is on page 5. I said I'd do C, so let's do C. 5C. Sorry, this isn't 5C. This is on page 5. This is technically 1 out of the surface area right pyramids and cones section. So this is 1 ABC on page 5 of the learning guide. And depending on what you use to print off that learning guide, sometimes they format all goofy and you end up with the wrong page numbers and the questions get spaced out funny and it's just a bit of a headache, but if you can find it, there you go. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to find the surface area of this shape, which is a triangular prism, and we're going to find the surface area in millimeters, which is given in the question. And the first thing I notice, which is kind of evil, but it happens all the time in this learning guide, which kind of frustrates me a little bit, is that I have one height of my triangle here, if you think of just this triangle. One height's in millimeters. The base here is in millimeters, and then I have one as 0.8 centimeters. Why would they do that to us? That's just mean and cruel and anyways. So you got to be very careful. 0.8 centimeters, of course, is 8 millimeters. Just, what are we doing? Multiplying by 10? Yeah. To convert that into millimeters. So just be careful when you're going through these problems. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen from time to time. Like, look at letter E here. I've got inches, 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 and then feet. Like, why do they do this? It just makes it so much more difficult. But anyways, so just be careful with your units. Looking at letter C, we're trying to find the surface area. How many sides do we have to calculate the surface area of here? What do we think? How many shapes are there to calculate the surface area of? What are the shapes? How can we identify them? What's the easiest way to think about this stuff? How are we approaching this question? Any ideas? No ideas? Is anybody alive out there still? Am I just talking to Mr. Ross here by myself in my little room? If I asked you to take the surface area of letter C, what would you do? What would be the first thing you do? We're on the fence about whether being alive and well this Monday morning is either a good thing or a bad thing. All right, 2 people are with me. One wishes he wasn't. I'll just keep going anyways. A surface area is kind of like, think about painting the shape. So I have a triangle on the front here, which I'll need to know the surface area of. And then if I draw in some dotted lines here, I have this triangle on the back. So I have 2 triangles. All right, what other sides do I have? You guys probably done this when you were in grade, I don't know, 7 or 8. You talk about nets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the net of this. So I have this triangle on the front. I have the triangle on the back. So those are my 2 triangles. And then what else do I have? Well, I have this bottom piece, which is this green square. Guess it's not a square, it's a rectangle. So I need to find the surface area of that. And then I have another 2 rectangles to deal with. I have this front face, and then I have this piece on the back here, which is just another smaller rectangle. So those are the pieces that make up this shape. I've talked a lot today. I need a break. So what I want you guys to do is, at the very least, you could label the length of each of the sides of the shapes that I've drawn there to set yourself up to calculate the surface area. If you're feeling a little bit crazy here Monday morning, you can just calculate the area of all of these shapes and just add them together and get an answer. But I've done enough for now. I would love it if you guys took a second to try this question. So I kind of got it set up there for you. Just take a minute. If you want, you can put your answers into chat. If not, I'll just continue on here in a second. So yeah, give that one a shot. See how you do. All right, guys. 2 minutes on the clock are done. What do we think? Did anybody run into a problem? Anyone have issues labeling one of these shapes? Yes, no. Everyone was okay. Everyone got the answer, they just don't want to share it. Tough crowd today, tough crowd. I'll put in some numbers. Could you go over how to find, of course, leads, that's what I'm going to do. But what is it? What are we talking about here? What am I trying to find? Surface area of these shapes. All right, let's think about this blue triangle that I've drawn here. I have one on the front, one on the back. I know that this side is 16 millimeters, so this side is going to be 16. And I know the base is 12. And to find the area of a triangle, I have base times height divided by 2. I can get that one. All right, the next one I have here is this green square on the bottom. If I look to my diagram, this piece is 12 and by 8. So length times width, that one's fine. How about this red rectangle? So the red one is this front face here that I've drawn in. Did anybody have an issue finding the red rectangle's dimensions? I know this is 8 because I have it written down here at the bottom. What about this side or the other side? Do I know what that is? Or did I give you a question that was impossible to do, set you up for disaster, first thing in the morning, and just let you flounder? Can anyone think of a way to find that? Can we find it at all? Or is it just a question that was flawed right from the beginning? I need help, guys. Somebody has to help me out. Well, we're discussing that. This black rectangle has a height of 16, and then the base is 8 from the diagram as well. So we're good. We know everything except this red face. I have this mystery side. Now Tiana's suggesting I have to find the side of the triangle. And I think I know what you're talking about. So what Tiana's saying here is that if I'm trying to find this red rectangle, and I know this is 8, but I don't know this side. Of course, this is the same shape as here. Now Tiana's suggesting that in order to find this side, the mystery side, I need to use some information that I already have. I know the length of this side, and I know the length of this side, and that gives me this triangle. Maybe I'll just redraw the triangle down below here. I have a blue side, and my red side. Now, Tiana, since you are the only one talking to me right now, do you know how to find that red side, that mystery side, given this triangle? Do you remember what we call it or how we do that? How can we find the length of that side? All right, Jesse. You are exactly correct, Jesse. Do you remember what that's called? Does anybody remember what that's called? It's on our formula sheet. Named after a nice fellow. Pythagorean theory. You got it. So it's named after a group of people that studied under the mathematician Pythagoras. That's close enough, Leeds. I'm not a big on spelling. I'm a math teacher. We'll let Mrs. Ward worry about the spelling. All right, so this says if we have a right triangle, which we do, that if we know any two sides, we can find the third. So x squared plus y squared is z squared, a squared plus b squared is c squared. It doesn't matter. The important thing is that this long side, which is across from the right angle, you guys remember what that one's called? I'm really testing your memory now. The long side in a triangle has to be letter C. The A and B, they can swap back and forth. It doesn't matter what order A and B get put in. The long side of the triangle has to be C. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to find out the question mark. Now maybe question mark isn't a great letter. Let's call it X. So I'm going to call it x squared. That long side's called the hypotenuse of the triangle. So we're going to go 16 squared is 256. 12 squared is 144. And I'm going to add those together to get x squared. And it's like this, just meant to be, getting ahead of myself. 400 is equal to x squared. Now, if I want to figure out what just x is, I have to take the square root of both sides there. So I'm not interested in x squared. I'm just interested in x. So the square root of 400 is 20, because 20 times 20 gives me 400. And the mystery side is 20. So I can go back up here and I can put in a 20 instead of the x. Whew. All right, so that was a lot of work, and we haven't even found out what we're trying to initially find out, which was the surface area of this triangular prism. So I'm going to look at this guy here, these two triangles. I know the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. And of course, these two triangles are the same, so I'll just have the same thing twice. So base is 12. The height is 16, and then I'll divide it by 2. 12 times 16 gives me 192. Divided by 2 is 96. So if I wanted the surface area here, 96. This one here is 96. You betcha. Okay, the next shape I have is this green little rectangle, which is 8 by 12. 8 times 12 is, what are the chances? 96. All right, the big red one was 20 by 8, which is 160 square units. What are we in millimeters? And then this last one is 16 by 8. So I multiply those together and I get 128. So I've found the surface area of each of my 5 shapes, and I had to do some Pythagorean theorem to find a missing side, but I have all 5 shapes now. If I add them all together, I should have the surface area for that entire shape. Now we've taken our time going through this, and there's a lot of steps involved. And there is no magic way, there's no magic formula to find the surface area of like rectangular prisms or triangular prisms. You just have to do the work. Each side, one at a time, add them all together. There's no magic bullet here. So we're going to have to just add them all up. I had my blue triangle, which was 96. I had 2 of them, so I'll just write 96 twice. Then I had my green one, which was another 96. And then I had my red rectangle, which was 160. And then I had my black rectangle, which was 128. Total gets me 576. I found a surface area, so millimeters squared. Holy cow. All right, what do we think? Is that doable? You guys are really good at finding the areas of triangles and rectangles. You've been doing that for a long time. So really, you're trying to find the surface area of a 3-dimensional shape. What are you doing? Well, you're just doing like 5 questions that you would have seen, 2 years ago, but it's just all in one question. You just got to add up all the answers all at once. So hopefully that's not terribly difficult. Thank you, Jonah. I'm probably just going to stop there. I'll say a few more things about a few of the other questions I've circled. You got 640. I'll check my math, Eric. 96, 96, 96, 160, 128. I got 576 again. 96 times 3, 160. Did anybody else get 640 like Eric did? I keep getting 576. Did you have different numbers, Eric, for any of the shapes that I have here? Like, I'm pretty sure if we get 96 3 times, then the 160 and the 128, that is 576. If you had a different area for one of the shapes that I perhaps made an issue or mistake along the way, 12 times 16, 96, 96, 20 times 8, that looks right. 160, 8 times 16, 128. Yeah, I'm thinking it's just a math error somewhere in there, Eric. Could you go through the questions you want and don't want us to do again? Sure. I'll give you some hints as I go through them. I'm going to go all the way back up to the top. Nothing on page 1. Nothing on page 2. Page 3. So at the bottom of page 3, there's a few conversion questions. You guys have done a bunch of the conversions already. I'd like you to just do number 1. So that's the bottom of page 3. SI and imperial conversions, just do number 1. No tricks there, some basic conversions. what you need to do is refer to your formula sheet and look at the conversion factors. So it's going to say kilometers and yards, and there's going to be a ratio, what a kilometer is in yards. And you just write 1 kilometer is whatever, 3,000 yards, multiply, get your answer in yards. So just using the conversion factors, just plug them in there. All right, so that's page 3. Number 1 on the bottom. This is page 4. Nothing on page 4. Now this is where we start to get into the stuff we just did today. Page 5. At the top is letter B. I want you to do B and C. We just did C, so you should have that one done already. Don't worry about D. It's a bit of a headache, D. Letter E, again, this is on page 5, letter E. Just trying to think. I'll give you a hint for letter E here. If you are dealing with this triangle on the top, you know this is 21 and this is 21. In order to find the area of a triangle, you need base times height divided by 2. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to use the Pythagorean theorem to find the height of this triangle. And that is the same triangle as is right here. So you're going to have to draw an imaginary height and calculate that, else you won't be able to find that one. So you're going to do E and F. Letter F, you probably be best to break it up. You can either break it up that way or you can break it up that way. Doesn't matter. You'll end up with 2 rectangular prisms. Make sure you think about that one. So that's letter F. That's page 5. So we're going to do everything on page 5 except D. This is page 6. There's a cylinder question at the top, number 2. Don't worry about it. I didn't do any square pyramids stuff today. I'll go through this next day with you guys. So number 2, if you get this far, I'll go through this. Remember, we're going to do this all over the course of this entire week. So don't think, oh, Mr. Borden gave me this learning guide, I have to do it all tonight. No, we have a week to do this. So I'll see you guys twice along the way. We're going to get this done by Friday. Not a huge rush on it right yet. So 2, letter B, C, and D. And I will go through B, C, and D. I'll go through letter D for sure next day. I'll probably do B or C, one of the 2. So that's page 6. Page 7, letter E at the top. There's a trick here, so don't worry about that. I haven't taught you the trick yet. The area of the base, area of the base is 1/2 the perimeter times A, and A is this 4.3. If you're really adventurous, you want to try that, that'll be a good challenge, but I'll go through that one with you as well. So that was letter E. Don't worry about F. Do letter 3, number 3, and 5 on page 7. Page 8, don't worry about the top 2. Volume, prisms, cones, and pyramids. Volume is so easy compared to the surface area. So they're really quick. You just area of the base times height, done. Or 1/3 area of the base times height, done. You just plug numbers in for volume, super easy. For letters B and C, what is super duper important is that this, although it doesn't appear to be it, it is the base. And same here. That is the base. If you do not calculate your formula using that as the base, it won't work out. I'll also go through those next day. You're thinking, Mr. Boren, this is a lot of stuff to go through next day. It is, but it's not really. Page 9, don't worry about D and E. If you could do F and G, that would be awesome. Page 9, F and G. Page 10, 4 and 6. And then number 1 under the surface area and volume of spheres. Spheres are super easy though. They don't take any time at all. So that's page 10. You're doing 4, 6, and then number 1 out of the volume and surface area of spheres. Page 11, let's do, not C or D, let's do 2 and 3 on page 11. 2 and 3, page 11. I like 4 and 5. Let's not worry about 6. And then that's it. Everything below here we've done already. Last class. So that's kind of it. Again, we're going to do this over the course of the week. Today, of course, we spend a lot of time talking about the course and expectations and things like that. So I'll go through a few of the trick questions next day. What I would like you to do between now and then is try as many of these questions as you have time for out of this learning guide. I would also really like it if you could go into the course and attempt some of these quizzes. So this is on measures of length, pretty straightforward stuff, and then conversions between SI and imperial. So I'm going to like it or hope or expect that you guys have done the first 2 quizzes before Wednesday's class. And then that'll leave this last 2 quizzes for between Wednesday and Friday. And we'll talk about a few of these questions from lessons 5 and 6. And then we'll be done Unit 2 the end of this week. I'll give you guys that unit exam password once you guys get the learning guides in, and I'll hope that the Unit 2 test is done by Monday next week. So that gives you a full week to get through all of that stuff and get that test done. Does anybody have any questions about that before we head off for the day? So again, go through the learning guide, do as many of those questions that I circled as possible. You're going to have a couple quizzes done for next day on stuff we started a couple weeks ago, and just kind of work through it. Take it into little small chunks. Don't try to sit down and do it all in one sitting. You'll drive yourself crazy. So there you go. Nobody has any questions? All right. Have yourselves a great afternoon. I will see you again same time on Wednesday morning. And come back with some questions that you didn't understand how to do, or things that you were unsure of, or if you're going to answer wrong or something like that. And I'll go through them at the beginning of next class. So have a great few days, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Thanks.